So my name is Ray, and I call myself, when I'm in the Vortex, Abraham. So I'm getting it. And I love this understanding that for every physical manifestation, there is a vibrational root from whence it came.
What kind of root?
Vibrational root.
Meaning from source? Or
Yes.
meaning from contrast? Because that's the real root.
Both. I know it comes from vibration first, whether it be positive or negative. So sometimes it's interesting when something manifests negatively, quote unquote, to see where the vibration is to clean it up. Maybe a focus wheel, maybe just popping into the vortex. And
But the reason that we are staying in the vicinity of where you started is because there's something out of whack in it. And,
okay, good.
And let's sort it out just a little bit first. So, where is the actual root? If you want to call the desire the root, then where did the desire come from? Well, the desire came from contrast. And contrast comes from variety, or contrast comes from all that is. So, what we want to sort of ferret out here is, isn't everything really about the relationship with something else?
Yes.
And what is relationship? It means there are two vantage points which are interacting with one another, playing off one another. Yes?
Right.
And the thing that we so want our physical friends to hear that they are often not hearing is that the relationship between the non-physical aspect of them and the physical aspect of them really is at the root of everything that they experience. And since most physical beings are eager to call the non-physical part a worthy, virtuous part, then we want to call all contrast, therefore, a good thing.
Ah, yes.
Because all contrast is leading to the new request, and focus brings the new request about, and it's not easy to recognize from whence the desire has come. Everything's just your power in the moment focus. It doesn't matter where it got started. What matters is the keeping up with the furthest most extension of it.
Right.
In other words, so what we're playing with you about is, rather than trying to figure out what the root of something is, let's look forward to the most newly expanded. That's why we're wanting to get you all focused into the vibrational reality and diffused a bit from the reality that you are all so infatuated with. So now what?
So I have a physical reality that I want to pull my attention from, but it's very sticky.
Well, that's because you keep emphasizing it. And you see, we've never known anyone who could get away from that tar baby. Because the more you poke around in the thing, the more it holds you to it. And law of attraction just says that. That's that sticky thing. And it's only sticky because you're looking at it. So look somewhere else.
So I'm manifesting it in my sleep, which I would think would be in non-resistance. It's snoring. This is my big issue, right? This is how good my life has been, that snoring is my issue. So I'm doing this snoring, and I'm thinking I'm sleeping. I should be non-resistant, but I wake up, and of course it's disruptive to my family, and my husband can't sleep, and we're having all this chaos about it. And I'm thinking, well, what's going on with me that I'm manifesting this disruptive experience in my sleep?
All right, so let's identify. So you're calling it disruptive. Does it wake you up?
No, it doesn't. I sleep very well.
So it seems like it's
So my
their
husband's the
manifestation,
problem,
not yours.
right? Okay, good. I like this. This feels good. It's all about them.
So let's make the out of the focus wheel, out of the vortex statement. I know what I don't want. And the best way to do that is, I feel, and then speak your emotion. I feel about.
Okay, I feel unattractive when I'm told I snore. And that really bothers me when my husband is having to deal with me snoring. So I feel...
Well, now, don't get carried away here.
Okay.
We just ask you for a simple statement. You're doing a whole anti-focus wheel over here.
I'm sorry, I just...
But that really speaks to it, doesn't it? It's easy to talk about it, and it's clear that you have a strong feeling. I feel embarrassed.
Yeah.
I feel embarrassed at...
at not sleeping beautifully. I don't,
Well, it's worth getting at, because once you know what you don't want, then I feel embarrassed at my lack of control of my bodily functions. We just thought we'd make it really bad.
Okay. Here we go.
It's not just the snoring, you know.
Oh, God. I think I have a little bad breath sometimes, too.
I feel embarrassed for the disruption I'm causing others. How's that?
Yes.
And it's interesting because the way you worded it, we need to add more to it. It's not just the disruption you're feeling uncomfortable about, but it's their negative response to your disruption. Because you said, I feel uncomfortable that I'm not behaving beautifully, that I'm not sleeping beautifully. So it's not just that I'm uncomfortable that I'm making them uncomfortable. I'm uncomfortable that they're uncomfortable that I'm making them uncomfortable. In other words, what's the emotion? I feel embarrassed.
Embarrassed, uncomfortable.
I feel embarrassed
bad.
at how my seeming lack of control is negatively impacting others and bringing negative judgment from them toward me.
I knew this was about relationship. I knew it. I mean, I thought it was about me, but I hear now it's in the relationship to my...
You know what the giveaway was? You're snoring and you're sleeping well.
Yeah.
And so we wouldn't be having this conversation
if I lived alone.
If someone else or someone who was snoring louder.
Right.
But when you have a beautifully sleeping person next to you.
Right.
So it is that attention. It's what you think they're thinking, or what you know they're thinking because they're saying it. So what are they saying?
You've got to stop that. I can't sleep. And it's becoming a problem. So and I've been banging it out in action. I've got the pillow and the mouth guard, and I'm about to spend $2,000 on a new mouthpiece to keep my, it's crazy. I'm banging it out in action, and I know better. I teach
All right,
this,
so I feel embarrassed, uncomfortable that my behavior, my unconscious behavior.
There you go.
My unconscious behavior is disruptive and unpleasant to those whom I seek to please.
How do I...
Wait, don't pass over that.
Okay,
that's the important part. Over those that I seek to please.
There it is.
So now you know what's on that end of the stick. I know what I don't want, so I am disturbed at my unconscious snoring and its disruptive effect and others' response to it. So on the other end of the stick is I enjoy my alignment with Source, period.
Yes. And I don't care what anyone else does, thinks, says.
You see, because what happens is when you're in alignment with who you are, in other words, snoring.
Do I snore in my vortex?
Did you write that down? Well, you placed the perfect question right before we were about to give you the perfect answer. We're just trying to decide how to break this. When you're in alignment with who you are, the breathing in and out, everything is in alignment. And snoring is an indication of some misalignment. But the more important thing about this is it becomes compounded because your misalignment now is attracting other misalignment, and that's why the thing's getting all out of whack. In other words, what someone from the outside is saying to you, you need to change your behavior so that I can have a better response to it. And that's not what you came to teach. You didn't come to be a perfect offerer of behavior so that those who are interacting with you could then have a perfect experience. Now, getting back to your wonderful question, do I snore in the vortex? We want to stick something in ahead of sleeping, and that is, if you go to sleep out of the vortex, you wake up out of the vortex. And what happens during your slumber is a withdrawal of consciousness from this time-space reality and a reemergence into non-physical. And your dream state is something that occurs in far less time than you think as you are coming back into awareness. And so if you are in a deep sleep and there is snoring going on, that is an indication that there is some resistance present prior to reemerging, and you are translating that resistance through that.
Okay, how do I clean that up?
By getting rid of resistance. But you think that what you're wanting to clean up is snoring. And what we're wanting you to clean up is the resistance that you're going to sleep with that is manifesting in the snoring. But it gets compounded still further. We don't want you to do any of that for them.
Yeah, right.
Occasionally, Jerry would snore. And since they're in close proximity all of the time, Esther never talked about it because she was not bothered by it. And in fact, sometimes she goes to sleep at that rhythm of Jerry's snoring. And then, once she called his attention to it, he stopped snoring altogether. And then he had an allergy to something and was having a hard time breathing. And then Esther wanted to hear him snoring because she knew when he was snoring, at least he was asleep. And so what we're getting at here is we don't want you to be too involved in other people who are watching you do anything, especially sleep. And when you start getting feedback from people who say, you need to do something differently for my well-being, that's when we want you to all dig in your heels and say, you need to adjust to my snoring if it bothers you. And you need to adjust to your vortex if their being bothers you. But we would not do anything about the snoring to feather someone else's nest. We would be dealing with it for the sake of bringing yourself completely into alignment. So here's what we would encourage. Rather than the contraptions that you're considering, just make a decision that you're going to go to sleep in the vortex. Just say that to yourself every time you put yourself in your bed. Not because you want to protect your family from your snoring, but because going to sleep in the vortex means you're going to wake up in the vortex. Now, we want to clear something up here, because when you are really asleep, you have withdrawn your consciousness from this time-space reality, and your vibration really does become in alignment with who you really are. But it's a rare one of you who withdraws your consciousness from this time-space reality and maintains it for the whole time that you're in bed. In other words, you're sort of re-emerging and departing and re-emerging and departing. It's in that in and out, in and out, in and out, that you're translating the relationship between the vibration of your wake state and the vibration of your source. So it is a reflection of what's going on between those two vibrational vantage points. And so it is absolutely accurate that the more in alignment you are consistently during your day, the more you will find a releasing of that, because the vibrational reference or relationship between your wake state and your non-physical, in this case sleep state, will be more in alignment.
So if I dig in my heels a little bit more about being who I am and not worrying about pleasing anyone, chances are the physical manifestation of the snoring is just going to clean up itself.
We would say yes to that loudly, because the strongest source, not just with you, but with nearly everyone, of your resistance is your relationships with others.
Got it.
Because you're observing things all day that rub you the right way or the wrong way, so to speak. And as long as any of you are leaving it to the others to make the changes, you're giving away your power. And as long as you're giving away your power, you're not in your vortex. You're not in alignment with who you really are. This is such a wonderful conversation, because the first thing that you want to say in all cases to anyone who's bothered by you is, don't look.
Oh, yeah.
Don't look, don't listen, don't ask me to change. I may change because your feedback matters, and I may change because I want to be in alignment, but don't ask me to be a willing contributor to training you away from your own guidance system. That's really what we're saying to you. It sounds harsh a little bit. Don't ask me to stop snoring because it's bothering you. Sounds a little uncaring. But don't ask me to change my behavior because you can't focus otherwise. In other words, so many of you are knocking yourselves out. You even want to sleep beautifully. You're just knocking yourselves out to be whatever anybody else needs you to be. And what that does is, every time you're making any effort to be what anybody else needs you to be, you're training yourself away from the only thing that will ever bring you into alignment, the only thing that will ever bring you into love, the only thing that will ever bring you into clarity, the only thing that will ever bring you into well-being. That's why we say you got to dig in your heels and lovingly announce to them, I'm doing this for you.
No, that'll go over really well.
Well, isn't it interesting that something that a lot of people are dealing with, that almost no one has looked at it from the standpoint of you in relationship with you? And doesn't it really speak clearly to your desire to try to please others and your willingness to acknowledge yourself as inappropriate? And the reason that so many of you are willing to acknowledge yourself as inappropriate, and almost everyone in the room is saying, Geez, Abraham, she snores. It's got to be hard for anybody who's trying to sleep. But you miss the point if we start talking about the snoring again. We're talking about any of the dozens and dozens and dozens of things that you all have been accused of annoying others about. In other words, you just can't be whatever they need you to be in order to make them complete. It's not your job to make them sleep well.